young professionals webinar of 2026 hosted under the SADC Groundwater Management Institute, SADC-GMI. Today's theme, doing more with less, innovative groundwater approaches under resource constraints, could not be more timely. Across our region and globally, we are facing a reality where water demands are increasing while resources, funding, and infrastructure capacity remain limited. Climate variability, rapid urbanization, and of course, growing populations are increasing pressures on our groundwater systems. And yet, this is where opportunity lies, because when we experience resource constraint, innovation is no longer optional, it becomes essential. Groundwater continues to be the backbone of water security in the SADC region, supporting rural water supply, agriculture and food security, urban resilience. But managing groundwater effectively requires us to think differently. How do we monitor aquifers with limited data? How do we design cost-effective interventions? How do we leverage technology and knowledge to maximize impact? These are exactly the questions this webinar seeks to explore. The session brings together leaders and practitioners who are actively working on knowledge-driven governance, digital tools like Google Earth Engine, and cost-effective groundwater investigation techniques. Through their insights, we aim to inspire new ways of thinking, share practical, applicable solutions, strengthen capacity of young professionals. I'd also like to take a moment to appreciate you, our young professionals. You are not just participants in this program. You are the true custodians of groundwater resources in the SADC region. And platforms like this are designed not only to transfer knowledge, but to build confidence, encourage collaboration, and spark innovation. We have an excellent lineup of speakers. I see Smangele has shared the agenda on the screen. So we have an excellent lineup of speakers today, each bringing a unique perspective on how we can truly do more with less. We will begin with our keynote address from Engineer James Sauramba, who will speak on knowledge-driven governance in the groundwater sector, and then followed by Dr. Webster Gumidonga, exploring the power of Google Earth Engine. And last but surely not least, Thandeka Ngobe, who will share cost-effective approaches to groundwater investigation. I encourage everyone to actively engage during the session by providing your comments in the chat and questions at the end at our dedicated Q&A session, where we'll open up the mics and you'll be able to speak directly to our speakers. We will also place the attendance register link in the chat, where you'll be able to register your attendance. With that said, thank you once again for joining us. Let us take this opportunity to learn, to connect, and to challenge ourselves to think innovatively about groundwater management, especially in resource-constrained environments. It is now my pleasure to officially open this webinar and invite our keynote speaker, Engineer James. So I'd like to ask Engineer James to switch on his camera as he moves to the stage, and we'll be able to we'll be able to warmly introduce him. Engineer James, can I just have a sound from you so that we can add you on the spotlight as well as switch on your video. Engineer James? I saw the presentation was shared. You are also welcome to share the presentation. I saw you. Okay, yes. we see Engineer James, and he is walking up to the stage. I hope you are able to see him.
Thank you, Getty.
So, yes, thank you. You are now seated on stage, our virtual stage. So I would then like to take the opportunity to warmly welcome you and introduce you to the young professionals. So Engineer James established and led SADC-GMI as its inaugural executive director since 2016. He developed and implemented rolling 5-year strategic and financial sustainability plans to ensure future success of SADC-GMI. He is a distinguished civil engineer and MBA graduate specializing in infrastructure planning, development, and policy guidance across Southern Africa. He has a wealth of experience across multiple countries in the SADC region, as well as Europe. He has dedicated his career to enhancing water and sanitation, urban development, solid waste management, transport, and climate change projects. He is a true champion of young professionals in the SADC region. Under his visionary leadership, the Young Professionals Program was established, creating a platform that has empowered and connected over 1,000 groundwater young professionals across our region. Engineer James has consistently become and been more than a leader. He has been a mentor, a motivator, and a strong believer in the potential of young professionals. Many of us will recognize his powerful and engaging words on LinkedIn, where he often reminds us to, and I quote, "Keep flying the SADC flag high." That message reflects not only pride in our region, but also a call to excellence, collaboration, and impact. Today, we are privileged to learn from his insights and experience. Engineer James, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Getty. Thank you for the kind words and the encapsulating introduction of my profile in the sector and in the infrastructure sector at large. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you all young professionals to today's webinar, where I have been invited to make a presentation on the latter part of this presentation talks to doing more with less in the groundwater sector, doing more with less. So I'll dive straight into the presentation. I took a specific dimension of doing more with less. We can talk about doing more on the innovation side with less data, doing more with less capacity, and doing more with less of any other resource that we need. I have chosen to focus my doing less on the governance side of things. And I've delved through this presentation, looking at a lot of the examples or the experiences that SADC-GMI had as we started from establishment to date. So the topic of my presentation is, let me just make sure it's fully the entire screen. Screen. So the topic of my presentation is knowledge-driven governance, doing more with less in the groundwater sector. lessons learned from SADC-GMI on building agile institutions for high impact innovation. So we are quite cognizant of the fact that we have an imperative where we have a rising demand across the SADC region. Globally, groundwater institutions face increasing demand for water security as populations grow and climate variability intensifies. We are quite aware of how climate change is causing droughts. It is also causing a lot of flooding. And in this dilemma, we also have a resource that is more resilient to the impacts of climate change, such as pollution, as well as the impacts of drought, where it doesn't evaporate as much as surface water. So the demand for groundwater, which is kind of a good buffer, as well as a secure resource, is intensifying. At the same time, the budgets or the financial resources remain the same, or they are shrinking. We know the global wars that we have now, and we also know the amount of resources that we have to take to purchase other resources such as fuel amidst the wars that are going on now. So the budgets are stagnating, and we have less and less that we can invest in increasing the resource or water security. So the challenge is how to achieve significant lasting impact with limited financial resources. And the answer lies not only in the money, but we must be smarter in generating knowledge and utilizing the knowledge to invest wisely. So we have to understand that if we need knowledge to invest in this resource, what kinds of knowledge do we need? I have unpacked this into 6 categories of knowledge that we definitely need. And I think this resonates quite well with you as groundwater practitioners. The first one is the quality. We have to understand what is the quality of this resource. It's an asset. Before we invest, we have to understand what quality of groundwater are we investing in. We also have to understand what is the quantity. This takes us to different types of quantification of the resource. It can be through recharge. It can be through recharge, of course, and the forms of recharge differ. It could be rainfall. It could also be the artificial mechanisms that we can adopt. The source of that water that we use for recharge also varies from different areas. So the quantity is critical. We need that knowledge. We also need to know the location of the resource. In spatial terms, that is geographically, where is this resource? In proximity to those that need to utilize the resource. And in hydrogeological terms, I think you would know better than me the types of aquifers and their susceptibility to pollution and other such characteristics that are so important. In addition, we need to know the ease of accessing that resource. How do I get that resource? Some of it, we get it through shallow wells. Some we get through deep boreholes. Some we have to invest significantly to be able to access the resource. So that ease of access tells us what is the capital investment required to extract or to access this resource. This determines the scale at which we can access the resource. So that's indispensable knowledge that we have to have. And we also have to understand the sustainable use of the said resource. If you pump over a year, during the dry season, it dries out, and during the wet season, it recharges. And it also talks to the infrastructure that you have to put in place. We have to understand and have that knowledge before we tap onto this resource. So the aspects of operation maintenance, the costs associated with that, the longevity of the utilization of that resource, and the tariffs, the costs that are associated with abstracting this resource is critical. And of course, we also have to understand the governance and risk allocation, which is an enabler with strong institutions that have got knowledge of the resource, we can then understand how to invest in this resource and have a lasting impact. So bankable groundwater assets are defined not just by what is underground, the water itself, but by the intersection between the hydrogeology, its certainty, the low-cost engineering aspects, and the enforceable governance. So what we know has to be anchored somewhere, strong institutions that understand all these dimensions. Moving forward, we have what we call the fallacy of funding without knowledge. If you invest without all that knowledge, financial resources alone will not go far if the institutions governing them lack adequate knowledge of the groundwater resource. And investing without informed planning is costly. If you don't plan adequately, it means you either under budget or you over budget or you invest in something that doesn't last. So investing without informed planning is costly and often leads to misdirected efforts and low impact outcomes. With knowledge, you manage what you know. The most critical high return investment is in internal systems that improve knowledge of the groundwater resource. So institutions that lead or guide the investments should have a lot of knowledge. And to do that, they have to invest in internal systems. I'll talk about the type of systems that are essential for an institution that is responsible for governing a resource should have. This foundational knowledge enables every subsequent dollar to be spent wisely and effectively. That's how you do more with less. The imperative that is that groundwater governance institutions must first invest in internal systems that improve knowledge on the resource. Once you know enough, you'll be able to direct your resources, your financial resources, your limited financial resources into the right areas with adequate knowledge. So with that, you'll then be able to move from data to decisions through building knowledge systems. Generating actionable knowledge requires deliberate development of both internal and external systems that work in concert. So starting from the internal systems, you need standardized data collection protocols, centralized databases, and rigorous quality control to ensure reliable foundational data. That's inside the institution itself. Moving outside, you have to collaborate at strategic level, including with institutions such as universities, UN agencies, government departments, regional data sharing platforms. In our case, we've got the SADC-GIP, the SADC-GLA, where these are portals that link up our strategic choices or directions to find data and to integrate it to build that knowledge that helps us to make decisions. With this integrated with technology, using advanced monitoring technology and remote sensing, we expand the coverage and reduce cost. What does this mean? Using the internal systems, linking with external collaboration and utilizing technology, we should be able to generate knowledge that helps us to make high impact investments with the little resources that we have. This reduces a lot of replication or duplication of efforts. The goal is to process raw data into actionable decision-making information that guides investment and policy, transforming numbers into strategic advantage. What constitutes an agile groundwater governance institution? So we are here trying to also look at the dimensions that SADC-GMI has built over the years to define what we call an agile institution, of which an agile institution can adapt, prioritize, and execute effectively, even under resource constraints. It is built on a foundation of knowledge. So you'll find one of the greatest objectives of SADC-GMI is to build knowledge, and this knowledge is governed by certain pillars. One of these is fiduciary accountability, which is transparent spending that demonstrates value for every unit of currency. So fiduciary, we have a board of directors, and such is an important building block to build an agile groundwater governance institution. Financial sustainability, which is not only one directional or one pillarized or single source of funding. So diversified funding sources and reserves reserves to weather uncertainty and seize opportunities. We not only look at one dimension of funding our initiatives, but we look at different sources. It also has to have robust internal policies, clear procurement, human resources, data policies that prevent waste and corruption. This is about an agile institution with strategic management, with rolling strategic planning that has realistic implementation and measurable outcomes, as well as skilled workforce that is competent in the subject matter, data science, and financial management to translate knowledge into action. Once you have these building pillars integrated and working together, it gives an agile institution that will be able to invest the few and little resources that are there. This is just a quick roadmap of SADC-GMI's journey from a concept where we started in 2016 with the establishment we were established, we had a mandate, but we had limited initial resources. So we went into a strategic decision to invest in the institution itself so that we build trust. Then we went into strategic planning, which developed and implemented rolling 5-year strategic plans and financial sustainability plans. This actually then built the credibility and the credence to access the resources from different funding institutions. And with that, it actually introduced the multiplier effect, where when there is credibility, you tend to have more and more parties interested in collaborating with you. So I'm talking of an agile groundwater governance institution. The first investment was not in large capital projects. If some will recall, the first couple of years of SADC-GMI were invested in building awareness, trying to build a brand, and then investing in the internal systems. This foundational investment in governance and knowledge made all future investments possible. So doing more with less, there are practical investment approaches, and I think these, once we have knowledge, we can do things like manage aquifer recharge. Whilst we have knowledge, we can also utilize remote sensing and satellite data. Of course, there are pros and cons that I will discuss later. With knowledge, citizen science, low-cost monitoring is feasible, and it requires a lot of knowledge, gathering knowledge from inside, gathering knowledge from outside, integrating it with technology, you get smart investments. Data-driven prioritization. If you have data, mapping groundwater potential using existing data, it targets investments that it yields investments that are targeted. You don't waste a lot of resources. You also have to invest in knowledge management. Once you know something, utilize that knowledge and share it and ensure that you don't reinvent the wheel every time. That helps to do more with less. And harmonize data sharing protocols. If you are sharing a resource, it is good that you have a protocol for sharing the data and not relook or research for additional data all the time. When you share it, you can then do more with less. This is just a table showing what I've just mentioned. If you look at managed aquifer recharge, it is a low-cost storage climate resilience, but it has got the cons that is site-specific and it is susceptible to the risk of contamination. Remote sensing is quite regional, cost-effective, but of course it is also cost and needs expertise, citizen science, low cost, community ownership. However, the data quality and sustainability of engagement is some of the downsides of this. Data-driven prioritization, it reduces failed investments. If you have already boreholes that were drilled in an area, capture that information and share it rather than someone starting afresh and from first principles when you can actually use the knowledge that already exists. Each approach offers distinct advantages and challenges. The key is selecting the right combination based on institutional capacity, available knowledge, and specific groundwater management needs. So investing in knowledge to outlook agility. In a resource-constrained world, the most successful groundwater institutions will not be the ones with the largest budgets. They will be the agile institutions that prioritize knowledge as their foundational asset. Prioritize knowledge, treat knowledge as the foundational asset that enables all other investments. Build robust systems, develop internal systems to manage and use that knowledge effectively. Make informed choices. Invest in high impact, cost-effective innovations based on solid data. SADC-GMI's history and story is proof that by focusing on governance and knowledge first, you can do more with less. We have the sub-grant scheme that we have implemented across the region. These are high impact projects based on knowledge that groundwater is required in specific geographic areas, in specific thematic areas, and the impact has been a success story across the region. I'm sure this is a teaser. I have provoked a few of you, which is also the intention. As growing professionals, some of you will grow out of young. So I wish you the best in your endeavors, and I will pause at this juncture and give it back to you. Thanks. Get you.
Thank you very much, Engineer James, for an eye-opening presentation. As always, very, very interesting to hear your perspective on things. Your reflection on knowledge-driven groundwater governance truly sets the tone for today's discussion and challenge us to think more strategically about how we manage our resources. And of course, you're investing in knowledge, in quality, quantity, location, ease of access, sustainable use, and governance, as well as, of course, risk allocation. Thank you very much, Engineer James, for your presentation. I believe we will have a lot of questions dedicated to your presentations, but we will have the questions at the Q&A at the end. But you're welcome to post your questions in the chat at this point. But with that said, thank you very much, Engineer James. And I would like to now that we have touched on governance, we now would like to transition from governance to leadership. Once we have done governance and leadership, we want now to consider the power of technology and data in groundwater management. With that said, it's my pleasure to invite our guest speaker, Dr. Webster Gumidonga, who will be presenting to us on data, particularly Earth observation. I'd like to see if Dr. Webster, okay, I see you. I'd like to invite you to move up to our virtual screen. I'm putting you on the spotlight so that our young professionals can see your face. We can see you have already shared your presentation as well. So I'd like to formally introduce you before I give you the mic. So Dr. Webster is let me just warn you, young professionals, this is going to be a mouthful. So Dr. Webster is a hydrologist and Earth observation scientist based at the University of Zimbabwe, where he leads research and innovation in water resources, climate resilience, and geospatial decision support systems. He has authored 80 scholarly publications, 74 journal articles, and 6 book chapters. And he has over 2,400 citations. In other words, he is an influencer in research and an H index of 23. He has supervised over 100 masters and MPhil graduates and currently supervises several PhD candidates, contributing significantly to regional capacity development in water and climate sciences. His work integrates satellite Earth observation, hydrological modeling, and open source spatial platforms to support water resource planning, groundwater management, and climate adaptation across Southern Africa. His research outputs have informed programs and policy frameworks at institutions including UNDP, GCF, Global Water Partnership Southern Africa, LIMCOM, EMMA, ZINWA, and the IAEA. Dr. Webster has developed several operational tools, including satellite rainfall debiasing systems, flood hazard modeling platform used in groundwater recharge and drought vulnerability mapping tools, and the Zimbabwe National Wetlands Geospatial Database. He also serves as a chairperson of the Devure Sub-Catchment Council in the Save Catchment, providing leadership in basin-level water governance and integrated water resources management. I would also like to highlight that he is not only an expert in his field, but also someone very familiar to the young professional community. He was one of the resource persons at our first winter school last year in Zimbabwe, where he made a lasting impression, I kid you not just through his knowledge, but also through his engaging and memorable teaching style. Many of the young professionals who attended the winter school fondly remember him, his famous phrase, actually. I hope I say it right. Ask Auntie. In fact, I'd like to invite all participants who were at the winter school to drop in the chat what Ask Auntie means. We'd love to see those memories come to life again. With that said, Doctor, thank you for joining us, and the virtual floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Getty, for the wonderful introduction, and also to the leadership in SADC-GMI for giving me an opportunity to be interacting with the young groundwater professionals. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Yes, I do remember the the winter school, and hopefully we can continue further with those discussions. But today I want to just speak on harnessing Earth observation, but I narrowed it just to Google Earth Engine for groundwater assessment. I'm trying to look beyond maybe what we started in that journey, get in the winter school, where we're just looking at what causes groundwater storage to change. But today I want to also look at multi-driver analysis to those to the change in groundwater storage. That's basically what I'll be talking about, and I believe we're going to have a good time. Let me just start with an introduction on framing the groundwater challenge. I'm sure Engineer Sauram was looking at my presentation because some of the issues we really touched them. Groundwater supplies, supplies over 60% of raw water demand across Southern Africa. Yes, but we do have poor monitoring of this groundwater, and so we need decision support systems. You can also look at those statistics of rapid urbanization with those statistics, what accounts for that. There's also expanding irrigation. There's groundwater systems that are, that are fragile. And you can see also some statistics on some major cities. So my presentation today will touch on that, but we'll also zoom into some major cities within SADC. We're also going to zoom in some, where I work here in Zimbabwe, some common districts in some sub-catchments. But we are also saying that if we harness Earth observation techniques, we can do more with less. I think that's really the background. You can see on some pictures there, you can see that there's really declining groundwater anomalies. Sometimes as much as from -20 to -50 millimeters of that depletion. We're going to see from some visuals later on, but also rainfall variability varying in its geographical space within our Southern Africa, and also a lot of urban abstraction increasing. We can give some statistics on 2 to 5% annually. So monitoring is now very important, but the coverage monitoring is very, very low. I think this speaks to many of our Southern African places. So here we can look at, what is it that we observe as we move around. You can see on a picture below there, this what you call the Save alluvial aquifer. So there's a strong rainfall groundwater, coupling in raw systems. There's quite a very good relationship that can be observed between the depletion of groundwater and also the decrease in rainfall. So if we quantify rainfall, we're able to do more. Urban systems showing decoupling due to abstraction, large effects between rainfall and recharge clearly observed. Are we also going to observe in our data sets? Yes. And drought periods correspond to groundwater decline. So this is what we know, but to what extent is what young people can actually be seized with or managers. So by the way, the young people here are not just young in terms of just the age, but also we've got those that are young at heart. We invite them to join those that are young at heart. They are also here because they also manage the groundwater. What are some of the urban pressure signals that we begin to see? If we analyze our data sets, we begin to see population growth greater than 20% in most hotspots, but also we are seeing a lot of rural urban migration, the peri-urban areas. There's a lot of things that are happening. What also do we observe? Nighttime lights increased. I'm talking about the concept which is called nighttime. In remote sensing, if we observe where the lights are, for example, if a satellite moves over a city or over Zimbabwe, over Lesotho, over Namibia, where there are lights shows that there's a lot of economic activity, and probably these are the areas of high water usage, of high groundwater depletion. So we're able to monitor those and see those ones even within our analysis. Economic expansion driving groundwater demand and cities becoming groundwater stress hotspots. So within our work, we are also saying how are we able to look to see the areas where there's a lot of hotspots. So this is what we are my story today. So the urban pressure signals results in vulnerability. We are saying places with a high total population, places with a high vulnerable population also, they become areas that we are concerned with, and also the issue of exposure. I think this is just a summary. Chronic hazard, place of course with large temperature changes, large relative humidity changes, all those becomes areas of that we can observe even having water stress, not only in terms of groundwater stress, but also in terms of surface and groundwater stress. So in this work, or what I'm presenting, I'll begin to show you that there's what we call a multi-driver framework. It's not only one thing to say it's only climate. We're not just going to say it's only rainfall, but it's a multi-driver framework. So as we begin to do more with less, let's also be able to pick in all those indicators, but also to tell you that the way these are framed, they operate different in various places. For example, if I take groundwater depletion in Cape Town, quite different from the in Blawayo, quite different in Windhoek, etc., etc. But also even other variables that do not change with time, such as soils, geology. I think engineer James mentioned some of them. So we are also just going to. I'm also going to show you something.
Doctor, I think we lost you there. Or is it from my end?
Yeah, it's from
Yeah,
Sam
we've
Getty.
lost him. We've lost him.
All right. So we can imagine it's probably network. Let me just try to see if we can resolve it quickly. Thank you for your patience. I think at this point, while Doctor returns to the call, perhaps we can try to give our next speaker. We can try to give our next speaker a chance, and we'll be able to pick up when Doctor returns. Hopefully, the network will get better. But again, these are indeed the challenges we are facing in our region. So, so thank you very much for your understanding. So with that said, I want to introduce Thandeka, who is a young professional. I'd like to see if we can hear you and you are on the call. Okay, excellent. I can see you are already starting to share your presentation. So we will move into Thandeka's presentation. Thandeka is a passionate environmental and water scientist from the Kingdom of Lesotho. Eswatini, my apologies. Yes? Thandeka? Okay, perhaps it was someone else. Okay. Thandeka is an environmental and water scientist from the Kingdom of Eswatini with over 4 years of experience in groundwater management, WASH, and environmental sustainability. She holds a master's degree in geohydrology from the University of the Free State. Thandeka has participated in the SADC-GMI Young Professionals Program since 2018 and has presented at multiple SADC-GMI groundwater conferences. She has co-authored peer-reviewed papers on innovative groundwater exploration techniques, including publications in sustainable water resources management and Intech Open. She has worked on projects enhancing groundwater knowledge and sustainability in Eswatini through GIS applications, research, and community-focused water management. Thandeka is no stranger to excellence and innovation within the young professionals community. In fact, she was part of the winning team at our very first Winter School Innovation Challenge, a group that truly demonstrated what it means to turn ideas into impactful solutions. So today, we are not just hearing from a speaker, but from a proven innovator. Thandeka, we are excited to see that same creativity and practical thinking come through in your presentation and perhaps inspire the next winning idea among our participants. Thank you for joining us, and the virtual floor is yours, Tandeka.
Thank you, Katie, for the wonderful introduction. Maybe let me just go through my presentation. So my presentation is titled Smart, Not Expensive, Cost-Effective and Innovative Approaches for Groundwater Management in Resource-Constrained Settings. So in this presentation, I will cover low-cost tools that can contribute to sustainable management of the groundwater resource, and also look into open source technologies or other softwares that can also contribute to groundwater management. And lastly, talk about the community-driven approach in groundwater management under resource-constrained settings. So the main challenge that most groundwater managers normally face is limited resources or limited funds, which then gives us a question that says, how then can we effectively manage our groundwater resource in environments where there is limited funding or limited resources? So groundwater is often defined as a resource that is complex. Maybe it's due to its invisibility. So there is normally the perception that to manage it effectively and sustainably, it requires expensive equipment and sophisticated softwares to produce complex models. Therefore, it requires a large budget. However, the reality is that fund is not always available. So we should sometimes maybe use what is available to effectively manage our resource, while on the other end, the groundwater resource is often exposed to increasing pressure from climate change, population growth, and rising water demands. Therefore, there is a need to come up with smart and innovative technologies or approaches that can be used and as solutions to actually manage the resource effectively with minimum investment. So in my next slides, I will look at the practical approaches or the practical solutions towards this challenge of low budgets or low funds or low resources. So the first approach is the use of low cost tools. So these ones are normally simple and sustainable hardware solutions that would allow one to frequently monitor the resource without the need of a large budget. And examples under this is the use of manual water level meters, the use of mobile devices to collect groundwater data in the field, and the use of affordable geophysical tools, maybe instead of the traditional tools that we know and could be very much expensive. And then the second practical solution is the use of open source softwares. These include GIS, QGIS, Google Earth Engine, and Excel to actually maybe turn our data into information that can be used to make more informed decisions when we are managing our groundwater resource. And lastly, it's the community-based approach where we involve community fully when we are managing the resource. For example, in using the participatory mapping, as well as citizen science monitoring and local knowledge integration, because we know local communities, they normally have a lot of information about what's going on in their communities since they stay there. Some of this information is not documented. And moving on to the low-cost tools, I mentioned that manual water level meters is one of the examples. The picture here, it was taken in 2018, the first young professional workshop where we were being taught on how to make manual water level meters using locally available materials. So as you can see in this picture, just to make that manual water level meters, we used a metal at the tip of that white rope and a voltmeter. So and a long rope, so that we can measure water levels in case you do not afford to buy those nice water level meters. And then also the use of our mobile devices for data collection, where we're using the built-in GPS, maybe to take coordinates in the field, to take pictures for reporting, and also to take some data in the field without having to bring papers and all that. And then lastly, under the low cost tools is the affordable geophysical tools. Here, the example is maybe it's not too clear on the picture. I didn't have a nice picture showing this geophysical tool, but basically it's your groundwater detectors. I'm sure most of you have seen them, which we refer to them as telluric electric frequency selection methods. These ones are quite affordable and can be used when the data is analyzed correctly. It can give significant insight of the subsurface, maybe for aquifer mapping, potential groundwater zones mapping, or even before drilling, like when you're siting a borehole. So from these low-cost tools, we can see that good data does not always require these sophisticated tools, but it requires consistency and smart designs. Then on the open source tools, these ones are the free and accessible solutions that can transform our data into actionable knowledge. For example, QGIS, which can be used to produce, which is normally used in groundwater management to produce our hydrogeological maps, which can also be used to basically for planning boreholes locations. And then there's the Google Earth Engine, which gives us a planetary scale information on the environment, and it also gives us historical satellite images that we can also apply when we are managing our resource. And lastly, it's the Excel. Excel is such a powerful tool that when you know how to use it, it can make your life simple. For example, there is the flow characteristics program that is Excel based, that we normally use to analyze our pumping test data to maybe give us information or parameters about the aquifers to estimate yields and all that. And then a practical example on the use of a QGIS is this hydrogeological map of Eswatini, where we used QGIS to actually construct this map. And then this one is the groundwater potential model. So this model here, it was produced from Rockworks, which is also one of the softwares. I think it has it has an expensive license to it. So you can use Excel to produce the same model. And this picture here of the same model was taken from one of our publications with Prof. Gomo, where we used Excel to actually make the same model, basically just to show that we don't always need all these sophisticated, expensive tools, but you can make use of what you have. And also, this is another practical example of from the FC model that I've mentioned, where we analyze the data, pumping test data from a confined aquifer system, just to calculate the aquifer parameters. And then the community-centered approach, basically, it advocates for community monitoring, where the individuals' boreholes are monitored by the community themselves. And this allows rapid issue detection. And then secondly, it's the participatory mapping, I'll make an example here where we are doing water point mapping here in Eswatini. So we were trying to map all our water points, especially those that government maybe didn't even know their exact location. So we used the community to actually give us that information. So it improved the data that we collected during that study at zero cost. And then also the local knowledge integration in groundwater management. So these communities, they have a lot of information about their water points. I'll make an example of when you want to map functionality of boreholes and all that. So currently in the country, we do not have a system where the functionality is being mapped or is being reported of the boreholes. So we rely solely on communities to provide data. And from this community-based or community-centered approach, we can actually learn that communities, they're not just the beneficiary of groundwater, but they also become the data partners. So in conclusion, using everyday devices like our mobile phones, we can use them to actually bridge the gap on data in the field. And communities are essential data partners in groundwater management. And lastly, the greatest innovation in groundwater management does not require this large budget, does not require sophisticated softwares, these expensive tools. But when we combine the data that we have with open source technologies, with our low cost tools, we can effectively manage our groundwater sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thandeka. Thank you very much for your presentation. Your presentation reminds us that solutions like do not always require complex or expensive tools, but sometimes innovation lies in the simplicity and smart application. And the phrase communities are not just beneficiaries, they are data partners really stood out for me. Thank you very much, Thandeka, for your presentation. I'd like to give Dr. Webster an opportunity to complete his presentation. Dr. Webster, are you on the call? Oh, yes, I can see the presentation.
Yes, Getty.
All right. The floor is yours, Doctor.
I was talking about nighttime, nighttime lights, and only to discover that the technology I was talking about is me who was night-timed by the technology. So
it happens. It happens.
My great apologies for that, but I hope I can just wrap up. I think I was almost 50% way, but I'll wrap up. So Earth observation framework for groundwater assessment. So like I'm just trying to give, so what's the methodology that I'm talking about here? We are using GRACE. It's a GRACE satellite. It's a groundwater satellite, not the grace of God. Here in Zimbabwe, I normally say not the grace of President Mugabe, not the grace of God, but a proxy for groundwater storage. We also use the CHIPS, which is satellite rainfall estimates, world population used for abstraction pressure. We also take some land cover changes from the satellites, then we integrate in a Google Earth engine. So that's basically what we are talking about. We can also do more. I like the past presenters because they're talking about, even with the simple techniques. Also, what I'm presenting about is really simple because we are trying to gather all the information on one platform so that we are able to make decisions. In other words, that's what I'm talking about in this slide, to say we combine, for example, even core-scale groundwater signals with high-resolution human climate drivers to capture both regional trends and local pressures. So I think for those that are interested, you can look at these are the various data sets that you can combine to do groundwater assessment, especially over time. Some of them are coarse, some of them are high resolution, but at least if you want to do more, you have to make the best out of everything. But also please take note that with the gray satellite, it's like a regional. More so if you want to understand from a catchment to a country to a regional scale, it's not really at a localized where you say your bore, you're absorbing water, then the gray satellite is not able to really to give you that output. So after we use this methodology, we are able to look at groundwater depletion hotspots. Groundwater depletion hotspots. What are they? Within Southern Africa, for example, we can begin to look at them. These normally coincide with less rainfall. Areas of less rainfall showing consistent negative anomalies linked also to low rainfall and high abstraction rates linked to urban and semi-arid regions mostly affected. So we are able to look at priority areas for intervention. I think that's the story that we are able to do or to say with these techniques. So let me first show you a story of rainfall decline as one of the key drivers to groundwater depletion. So you can begin to see significant decline in semi-arid regions according to our outputs there, drought frequently increasing, recharge opportunities decreasing, and direct impact on groundwater availability. So look at the picture there of a place of Cape Town rather. So you begin to see that in Cape Town, in red is the monthly rainfall changing, if you can see that, and also in blue is the groundwater anomaly. So wanted to see whether to what extent does groundwater anomaly respond to rainfall change over time. So you begin to see that those anomalies are linked, but also sometimes there's really a shift. So this is a situation in Cape Town. I would have put for many other places. So here, this is just a print screen of a code that we developed that is available really great for sharing with the young water professionals. Our tools, the tools for trade, we can share them because these are also open source. We developed them. So look at in Maseru, how also the groundwater anomaly. So what are we talking about? We speak about positive groundwater anomaly. It means that there's an increase in storage over that place. There's actually a gain. If there's a negative groundwater anomaly, it means that there's a decrease in storage. What causes a decrease in storage is because, for example, the high evapotranspiration rates, increase in droughts. But what causes the positive groundwater anomalies? Most of the times it can be due to increase in the rainfall or sometimes sustained wet conditions. If, for example, if I take a place, for example, in Chimanimani, and there's a flood, water resides in the soil for a long time, it's also picked by the satellite and results in a positive groundwater anomaly. But that was one of the factors. But with our techniques, with the Google Earth Engine, we're also able to look at what I was talking about, the nighttime lights. So this is zoom within one of our cities, and I was to zoom to Harare. But if you compare for the time, I was also going to compare the nighttime lights of Maseru, of Harare, of Gaborone, of Windhoek, and even our little, very small places. We begin to see that the nighttime lights, they decrease with the small places, which means that even the level of groundwater depletion is there's actually a difference. So these urban corridors shows high demand. We can pick that from our satellites. So I'm encouraging young people to make use of some of these not direct methods, but the indirect methods of looking at how rapid growth can increase groundwater withdrawals, and we can begin to quantify land cover and irrigation pressure. We can see from that processed image irrigated areas within Southern Africa, rain-fed areas, and water-managed areas which are non-irrigated. So we can see expansion of cropland, sometimes 10 to within the last decade of 10 to 30%. There's an effort by government, developmental agencies to expand the crop areas, even the irrigation areas. That's also introducing stress on our groundwater. So this is an illustration, but we can combine, for example, to say groundwater decline plus rainfall decline plus population growth is a risk hotspots. So we begin to say, where are those risks? So everyone can do it their own places, but also with a disclaimer of the cost resolution of our products. But these are things that young people can begin to do to take the available data sets, begin to analyze. These are some of the snapshots within our countries. I put a snapshot within our sub-catchment in Zimbabwe, between Zimbabwe and Mozambique, Pungwe sub-catchment. They also begin to see that those anomalies are also caused by the relation between the groundwater anomalies and also the rainfall. I think they're almost the similar pattern that we are seeing. But we see that sometimes, in some months, in some years, in the years of the drought, we begin to see the anomalies being negative, a decrease in the storage, and then we begin to see what causes that negative storage. Is it the rainfall? Is it the land cover? Is it the population, etc., etc.? Looking at our SADC, there are some key hotspots. For example, in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, in Masvingo in our low veld, there are some key hotspots that we can begin to see. And also in South Africa, there are some hotspots. So here I'm not just speaking of the Kululu Kalala, which is just an estimate, but some from analysis of our data within the code that I'll also be sharing. So in the Gauteng province, the Western Cape, within the Southeast District in Botswana, within some in the Windhoek, there are some areas that our results are beginning to show. Because Engineer James would want to come to say, with his intervention with the SADC-GMI as an institute, main developmental agencies, government, they begin to say, show us areas that are of hotspots so that we can do intervention. So I can tell you that those hotspots, those economic corridors. So we begin also to do the ranking. City risk, I did not put all of them, but something that gives us an indication. Because when development is coming, they want us to pinpoint, like I've said. We can say Lusaka and Harare and Johannesburg, they are areas of high risk, to the groundwater depletion. Why? Because of maybe high population, because of falling rainfall in Harare, maybe because of absorption pressure in Johannesburg, maybe because of climate stress in Gaborone. So all these are shown from our results. And after we do that, let me tell you that the Google Earth Engine code is able to give us alerts. What is an alert? Is if you are a boss, you manage a sub-catchment council, you work at Lusaka municipality, or you work at Windhoek in a water authority, you need to be able to pick those groundwater stresses over time. It should tell you that these areas of depletion, these areas of recovery, these areas of high alerts, low, extreme. So these are some of the things that these alerts are able to tell you. I'm just giving you just a snapshot. It can be snapshot in terms of the drought index, because drought and the rainfall, the evapotranspiration, they do contribute to our groundwater depletion. And so our code is able to show that. I will not be able to say it everything here, but this is what our results are showing. But what are the policy implications? What are the policy implications of using these Earth observation techniques, Google Earth engines? There's need for integrated groundwater monitoring. I will not want to explained further because my predecessors explained it. Urban abstraction control critical. Yes, because these areas, the raw areas, yes, they are also to play here, but also the urban. That's where we've got a lot of groundwater abstraction, at least here in Zimbabwe, but I'm sure I assumed here some places there in Windhoek, and I see that the same can be said. So what are we saying? EO, Earth observation integration into national systems, is quite required. And some strategic recommendations are on your screen, from early warnings for groundwater. We normally talk of early warnings when it comes to floods and droughts, but also in terms of groundwater, because our codes our systems doing more with less is able to show us. Support data-driven water governance. Adopt EO-based groundwater monitoring nationally. Let me ask you a question that you can answer on the chat platform. Do we have in your organization where you are working, dear listener, do you have or have you adopted Earth observation-based groundwater monitoring? Also, this is my final message. Groundwater management must move from reactive to proactive. You can't be proactive if you don't use techniques, if you don't use actually the low-cost techniques. I do not speak of the money here. That's speaking of the open source techniques that you can use and which are scalable, which are cost-effective, which can be integrated with other water management programs. So action is required. And when is action? Action is now. I'll tell you that we developed a code which maybe after some few days you get is ready for sharing with the young water professionals that can do all this. It's a matter of the professionals changing the names of their cities, names of their countries, names of their towns, etc., etc. And this code can also be sent as an app to our mobile phones. Otherwise, it's time to say thank you in various languages. Can you pick your language? Otherwise, over to you, Getty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much for your presentation, and exciting as always. You have demonstrated how tools like Google Earth Engine can transform the way we understand and manage groundwater systems. We have now heard from all our speakers, each offering a different and a unique perspective on how we can truly do more with less in groundwater management. Let's give all our speakers, a virtual round of applause. And I would also like to ask all our speakers to switch on their cameras so that they can move up to the stage as we proceed into the Q&A session. And I'd also just like to give a notification for those that have not yet registered for the webinar to just look in the chat for the link and register your attendance. I would like to have all our speakers on stage. So I'm currently moving all of them to the stage now. You can probably see all of them now, and we can then address, move into the Q&A and address our questions. I would like to ask the young professionals to first introduce yourself, like your name and the country you are joining from, and then indicate who your question is being directed to. So, for example, my name is Getty, and my question is going to Dr. Webster before you phrase your question. So we know that our speakers listen attentively when you are giving the question. They know it's directed to them. So I'd like to just make that announcement. Go ahead and put your hand up, then I'll be able to see who is having questions. But I also saw we have some questions in the chat. So I'll start with the first one, which was dedicated to Engineer James. It says, what would be your definition of a well-planned and successful groundwater mapping project? So Engineer James, you can start with that question. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'm sure I can answer it in various ways, but I'll try and allude to a scientific approach to that. So I believe that would be a well-planned and successful groundwater mapping project is one that should balance the scientific rigor and practical relevance. It has to be relevant to the circumstances, and it has to be based on a scientific assessment of that need. So it begins with a clear understanding of the end goal. What do you want to achieve? So then it develops a sound conceptual model, which is essential to build on a solid foundation of geological interpretation, geophysical surveys, and targeted hydrogeological data. So the basic combination, it has to have a clear scientific assessment, and that is also practical. And when you look at this, it then says, how do you get to the scientific understanding of the subject matter of your mapping? And this is where you apply the different methods, some of which have been discussed here, remote sensing, and so forth and so forth. And then the practical relevance are the instruments that you then use to get to map the groundwater. So in a nutshell, that's what I would say is a well-planned and successful groundwater mapping project. Of course, there are many elements that would then go into the two pillars that I've mentioned of scientific rigor and practical relevance. The objective of why you are doing the mapping. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. I cannot see the hands, so I would encourage young professionals to raise the hand on Zoom so I can see the people that are having questions, and also maybe ask support from Smangela to help with if I'm missing some of the hands. Moving forward, I see there's another question in the chat. I think this will be dedicated to Thandeka, and perhaps with Dr. Webster can also come in. The question is, how can groundwater monitoring, how can groundwater monitoring data collected by gauge readers be better integrated into national water resource management systems? And how can schools be involved in understanding groundwater using this monitoring wealth? So how can this monitoring gauge be integrated into national water resource management systems, and how can schools be involved in groundwater management? So community approach. Thandeka, I'll let you start, and then maybe we can end with Dr. Webster.
Thank you, Katie, for the question. Maybe to answer it, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you, Thandeka. Go ahead. I think we are experiencing some technical difficulties with Thandeka. I cannot really hear you. Dr. Webster?
Yes, can I take it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the person speaks about the first part. Was speaking about integrating, gauge reader groundwater data into national water systems. Yes, very, very important, because most times we don't have the tools or the techniques, especially in the raw areas. Because I was reading the full question, and also what the purpose of the question was talking about. But there's need to standardize that data collection with these with these gauges, with these field gauges. So it's very, very important to make sure that all the gauges have got same units, so that same measurement frequency, so that the data is usable. And also to ensure uniformity. So that's the first part, to standardize them. I think we do that for often, let's say with the rainfall, even rainfall records. If you give to schools, if you give to farmers, trying to standardize so that the records can be much usable. Then the second one is to try also to encourage mobile-based systems. So instead of those paper records where you go and you record, try to use the mobile apps. That's what I was talking about also here in my presentation. Those mobile apps are very important. SMS systems, etc., etc. Nowadays, there are also even some Android applications such as Kobo Toolbox or DK that helps those that are doing the recording to send in real time, and then you are able to make a decision. Then effectively can also do what we call a centralized database, or a centralized database where this information is being collected. Most institutions most national institutions that have got a centralized database, they can do more. Unlike those ones that have got fragmented things. I think that's what I can answer on that question. Then you were also talking about involving schools in groundwater monitoring and learning. This is very, very good, important, because it's part of what we call citizen science. Education in citizen science. It's very, very important to include them. So I think as you do your education, you can also look at nearby schools, then they are adopt that monitoring framework. You can make them record every week, every month, depending on what type of variables. Can be rain gauges for the rainfall, but can also for groundwater, maybe it can be monthly or weekly, so that people have got that ownership. And then when someone grows up and become a professional, they can really be able to, to carry on. They'll be the next young water professional. I think that's what I can say. But in addition, maybe that issue of integrating this education, data collection, citizen science into the curriculum. Sometimes people learn this at the university. It's supposed to be learned at a very early age. I think that's my response to this question, Getty. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for your response. I would like to hear a voice. Okay, I see a hand. Gloria? Gloria, please unmute
Hi,
yourself.
Getty.
Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to give context to the question raised by Mr. Botomani. He's one of the gauge readers that we identified. I would say the citizen scientists we identified during the SADC-GMI sub-grant project. He is responsible for collecting data at one of the monitoring wells in Mwanza. So I just wanted to add that for the local equipment that they use the Deeper to collect the data, and also they use the mobile phones. Some of them have mobile phones, which they use to send data to the ministry, and some of them upload this data on the MWAMIS app. And I just wanted to add that Mr. Bodoman could be a champion for the children, the pupils at his school. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Gloria. Yes, I absolutely agree, and thank you for bringing that contribution to the platform. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands, and we just have 2 minutes left. Okay, I see Alfred. Let's give Alfred a chance.
Yes, thank you very much, Katie. I'm here reflecting and marveling on such great opportunities. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, so I was saying I acknowledge quite insightful presentations and what the guest speakers and presenters have said. And I'm here sitting in the show where we want
sorry,
to
Gate, I've got a question. So I'm trying to find where I can raise a hand, but then I think I'm using my phone. But things have changed on Zoom. But let me just ask the question that I have.
Sorry.
Ernesto, can you just hold on, and then I'll give you a chance just in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was just appreciating a lot of effort and work that is ongoing in terms of research, and also recognizing Engineer Sauramba. I think we've worked a lot in terms of the work they are doing within the SADC in actually enhancing groundwater knowledge within the region. And as I was listening, I think it's quite encouraging how young professionals are also pushing to improve in terms of this big knowledge gap in terms of groundwater. I think one of the most challenges that we are faced with is how we can optimize in terms of the benefits that we are deriving from our groundwater resources. You'd see that at the lowest level, the lowest person is actually asking, where do I get access to groundwater? Where is it actually? And that gap actually usually leaves people walking very long distances in search of that. And let me go to the level where you talk about police, just to get a reflection from Engineer Sauramba and also Dr. Gumindoga to say, for police, in terms of police, when you look at police, in order for you to make a decision and a sound policy, you need robust information or data that can actually drive whatever process or negotiations. And for example, where I'm coming from, Pusacom, which is a transboundary context, you need such confidence with the information that you are getting in order to make decisions. And what could be your reflections, given that, of course, technology is going up, but however, you also need robustness in terms of the information that you are getting. You can't actually make a policy from an information source or data source that isn't that robustness, or that is that robustness that you might actually have some bit of question to say, can I make a decision or policy based on this? Maybe just to get reflections on that, but appreciating that we have to actually go the technology way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Engineer James?
Thank you for that question, Alfred. I think it's a good question, and you are obviously very right that you can't make a policy decision on the basis of scanty information, scanty data. So that's why our model as a SADC-GMI is to generate knowledge, and to generate knowledge, we need to have data. And that's why we have the SADC-GIP and other such platforms where we are collecting data, and also trying to move to a stage where we interpret the data into information and knowledge that is used for decision making. We are still very much in the young stage of generating adequate knowledge to go all the way down to, the micro level. I think most of our data at the moment could be dispersed and probably yet difficult to integrate into the very local level of decision making. So it's a body of knowledge that we still have to build. But I must say, I am comfortable that we are making some progress. Over the last 10 years, I think we have done some research on transboundary aquifers, on river basin organizations, on local aquifers, and we are actually envisioning a scenario where a SADC-GMI want to build a regional groundwater monitoring network if we are successful in getting additional funding on our regional groundwater program. So it's about knowledge, and obviously once we have knowledge, we can easily then push for the relevant enabling policy and legislative environment for such decisions to be made. So we also, we understand that's the direction we have to take, especially targeting the river basin organizations that have traditionally worked on surface water, and they have a lot of knowledge. If you ask a lot of people in country and probably in transboundary rivers, they can tell you where the next dam is. But as groundwater practitioners, we are yet to get there where we say with a measure of certainty, where can we possibly tap groundwater to supply and secure water supplies for our communities. So maybe that's the best I can give for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer James. We are going to give our last speaker a chance to give a question. Last question. Anesu, can you can direct your question now?
Thank you very much, Getty. My name is Anesu Gonye from Zimbabwe. So I think my question is going to be directed to Engineer James, but of course, even if other presenters have got a contribution on that, they can. So my question is to do with what Engineer highlighted, to say we need to have knowledge to do with quantifying our groundwater and quality. So I don't know. I just want to understand if there are some research or something that is already happening for us to understand the quantities of groundwater that we have, and the quantity of high quality water that we have, and also if there are also some groundwater that we have got that is not of high quality in terms of or even estimations. Thank you.
Thank you, Anesu. Engineer James?
Yes,
And-
I think Anesu, thank you for that difficult question. But obviously, I think what we know, we have got some very ballpark figures of the potential groundwater resources in our region, and probably at country level, you can have some statistics which talks to the potential. Potential means real potential. I think Dr. Kevin and others probably know better how they quantify this. But what I want to say is that we have monitoring networks that we have worked with different countries at local level, and what these do is they try to do levels, groundwater levels, as well as quality, groundwater quality. But this is still a bit dispersed. So we have research that is going on, but it's a bit dispersed to be able to provide a continuous data that one can then really put a finger and say, in Zimbabwe, we have got so much. This is a science that I believe moving forward, maybe with the help of AI and these other remote sensing technologies, we might get there, but much further down the line. This is the reason why, to a significant extent, we believe aspects of managed aquifer recharge could help us. This is my belief, because if I inject a certain number of cubic meters into an aquifer that I have done sufficient scientific study and I know its retention capacity, I have a reasonable probability that I'll get so much of it out after I have put it in. But other than that, everything else is probabilistic. We have a probability and a potential of getting groundwater with a certain quantity, but the scientific studies, I think the modelers have tried to come up with good estimations there, but it's still ongoing work in terms of quantity and in terms of quality. Of course, there are areas where we know that certain groundwater is of a certain quality that cannot be consumed for various reasons, chemical, pollution, and other reasons. So those are some of the things that are happening now. So to give you a very confusing answer, yes and no. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. Again, a reflection of how complex yet simple it can be. Thank you very much to our speakers. We have really reached the end of our webinar. I'd also like to thank our speakers that are already attending, that have attended to some of the questions in the chat. Thank you very much. I see Dr. Gumi has even put in extra links, and Tandeka has attended to some of the questions. So thank you very much, because we won't be able to take on all the questions. With that said, I'd like to thank our speakers really for dedicating time to join us this evening, and as well as our participants for joining and engaging throughout the entire session. It's almost 2 hours and we didn't even feel the time. Today's discussions have shown that even with resource constraint, innovation, collaboration, and knowledge sharing can drive meaningful progress in groundwater management. As young professionals, we are reminded that the responsibility and opportunity to shape the future of groundwater in our region lies with us. And let's continue to learn, to connect, and most importantly, keep flying the SADC flag high. I would also like to announce that we will be having our second Young Professional Winter School this year. This one is definitely not to be missed. More information will of course be communicated on all the SADC-GMI platforms. And yes, be on the lookout, guys. But then, of course, I would like to officially close our webinar for this month. We will have the next one in May. And thank you all. I look forward to engaging you again in our next session. And thank you very much to our speakers, and thank you to our young professionals. Goodbye.
Thank you, Katie.
all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
presentation.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Anjani?